Thank you, ma'am. So it's progressive, collaborative, resilient mindset, which basically helps us to develop as a leader. So before we go into each of these things like progressive, what makes us more progressive in nature, or what makes us more collaborative or resilient in nature, we'll discuss about what are the components which make us more progressive, collaborative, or resilient. But before that, let's talk about two things. Let's talk about two things. First is the thinking part, and second is the change part. So we'll take it one by one. We all understand that for doing any particular task, we basically have we need three different types of thinking. One is present focused thinking, another is past focused thinking, and third is future focused thinking. So, my dear faculty members, do we need all three different types of thinking for doing any particular task, or any two types of thinking, or any one type of thinking for doing any particular task? I'll request you to either share in the chat box or
So
unmute.
present and future,
Okay, so
and we can learn from our past as well.
right, so Tanseem ma'am, Dr. Tanseem ma'am is saying present and future. And you are saying, ma'am, past is also required because you can learn from the past. Am I
We
right,
learn
ma'am?
from our mistakes and all, yeah.
Right. So you are right on one part. We need all three different types of thinking. My next question comes on the same thing. If we need all three different types of thinking on a scale of 100, what is the weightage we'll give to all three different types of thinking?
So past 10 to 20, 20, I suppose.
Past
Present
10.
I'll give 40,
Mm-hmm.
and remaining future.
52.
Yeah,
Okay. Remaining 40, we can say. If we take 20
yeah,
as past.
remaining 40. Yeah,
Okay. Okay. So
because we
Tansi
haven't
ma'am.
seen future. We can only think of it and henceforth
Right.
kept it.
Right. So we are having a discussion here. Let's take some other perspectives also. So Dr. Tanseem says 20% past, 40% present, and 40% future focused thinking is required for completing any particular task in a right way. Any other viewpoint apart from this, or do you all agree with what Dr. Tanseem Khan has shared?
Sir, Naveen sir says past 25%, present 50%, and future 25%.
Can you repeat it, Kamalji, once again?
And past is 25%, present 50%, and future 25% by Naveen sir.
Okay. So first of all, Tasneem ma'am, I'm sorry I was pronouncing your name wrong. It's Dr. Tasneem. And here we have a different viewpoint from Naveen sir, Dr. Tasneem. He says 25% past, 50% present, and 25% future.
We have
So,
another response from Vanilla ma'am. Past is 40, present is 40, future is 20.
okay, future is 20. So third perspective, 40% past, 40% present, and 20% future. Yes, so let's not take more options. Which is the most appropriate option which we should go for? And Kamalji, is there any problem? My chat box is not showing any of the chats.
Sir, I think it is to do with your network only, sir. Thankfully, your voice is not breaking that much right now.
Right.
If you want to see the options again, sir, you'll have to reconnect once again because it might be stuck. Otherwise, there is no reason chat box is not showing up.
So then you have to help me in sharing the chat box responses because I am paralyzed in that particular sense now.
I'll be sharing, sir. I'll be sharing.
Right. Right. Thank you so much, Kamal. Yes. So which option we should go for?
Sir, I personally feel that it may vary from person to person and from
Uh-huh.
situation to situation as well.
Very right.
So if we just put it with the figures and all, so that becomes a bit clumsy and maybe problematic.
Right.
Henceforth, it is
And
my
we can't
perception.
even
It's my thought only.
yes. You are right, ma'am. We can't even fix it up what is the right percentage for this, but approximately, if I talk about the percentage part, if you disagree with me, you are most welcome. You give your viewpoint, ma'am. Also, I'll also share my viewpoint. I'll go with what
Yes, sure, sure.
I'll go with somehow. I think Naveen sir has shared 25, 50, 25. If I am right, Kamalji,
Yes, sir, Naveen, sir.
right? I'll not go exactly with that particular reading, but I'll go a bit different. 15% I would prefer to give it to past focused thinking, and 65% I would prefer to, or 60 or 65% I would prefer to give it to the present focused thinking. And let's say, uh, if I'm giving 60%, 65% here, okay, 10% I'll give it to past focused thinking, 65% I'll give it to present focused thinking, and 25% to future focused thinking. And I'll give my reason for that. Then the forum is also open for everybody to share their particular reasons if they disagree with this particular point also. The more we are in present, the better we can think about the future, and we can't forget about the past experiences, because that also makes our particular base in any particular thing, right? So regardless of any particular era, we have to take into consideration the past experiences. We have to be more into the present, but we have to foresee the future in next 2 or 3 years. I'm saying 2 or 3 years, because gone are those days of 5 or 7 years. We all, as faculty members or professionals from corporate sector also, we all understand now the things are changing too fast. So if you go for the standardization of processes for 2 or 3 years, that is gone. We have to regularly, you can say, re-engineer our particular processes in that duration of 2 years also. And in after 2 years, there should be a major change in the processes, because things are changing very fast now. So we have to keep 25% as a future focused thinking, because based on that we'll be designing the current processes. But the more we are in present, we'll be able to design our future in the right way. So this is my viewpoint. Tasneem ma'am, Naveen sir, and I think we had another viewpoint, Kamal sir, from which faculty member?
Benilla, ma'am.
Vanilla ma'am. Okay, so if you disagree with me, you can share your particular viewpoint also, and then we can freeze this particular discussion here, and then we can move forward.
Sir, I totally agree with you.
Mhm. Right. So thank you so much, Tasneem ma'am. Any other viewpoint from Vanilla ma'am or Naveen sir? I again request Vanilla ma'am and Naveen sir, if you have any other viewpoint, or should I move ahead from this? Okay, since there is no response, I'll take it as that we should move forward. So I am moving forward from here. We have spoken about how these three different types of thinking can be used in completing any particular task. Now let's go a bit further into this, or you can say deeper into this. If we take these past focused thinking, present focused thinking, and future focused thinking, and relate it to the change management part. If we relate it to the change management part, I'm sure a lot of faculty members, even though if they are from technical background, engineering background, or even from management background, they might be knowing about these different stages when we go through a change: denial, resistance, exploration, or commitment. So, can any of the faculty members make a guess what this particular slide is depicting about thinking and change? And towards the end of discussion on this particular slide, I'll also share with you why I have taken thinking and change as the first part, rather than straight away going to the progressive, then collaborative and resilient mindset, because this has a linkage with the progressive mindset part. Yes, I am repeating it once again. We
So
first.
what I feel is if we wanted to be progressive, first we need to think about the changes
Mhm.
and the way by which we can bring the changes, and then only progression will be seen.
Right. So,
Ji.
Tasneem ma'am, does it start in the way that we think, the way that you have shared with us? Does it start in the same way, or it starts in a different way? When we talk about bringing any changes as a leader, when we talk to our particular teams, let it be in
Yes, sir.
terms of any systems or processes. Does it start with a positive note that we are with you, Dr. Tasneem, in bringing in those changes? And let's be very fair
S-
in this.
Sir, I feel so.
Okay.
Yes.
So can I share with your due permission, Tasneem ma'am?
Yes, sir, please.
Right? Being from Punjab, I have added some spices like stay in confusion, cry in confusion, joy of confusion, and cry of joy, which I'll be sharing once I'll discuss this particular spice. Right?
You wanted to see
So
all the joys at the end.
yeah, right. So one, I have built this confusion part from one of the words that I have taken from one of my friend speakers session. He took a session on joy of confusion, and I have built it up on those particular things after taking consent from her to use this particular word joy of confusion. Right. So I'm not going into that story, but I'll share with this. As Dr. Tasneem was saying, when we talk about any particular change in process or systems to our particular teams, it starts with a yes. Tasneem ma'am, it will not start exactly with a yes, because on our face, our team would say that we are with you, Dr. Tasneem, if you are talking about any changes in the processes or systems. But inside, but inside, they are saying that they are not with you. It first starts with a denial. So you can relate it to any particular thing in your past experiences, even in present experiences also. Regardless of whether any change would be positive or negative, people generally deny to listen to those particular new changes that you are proposing. And there is a reason for that. Why they are in a denial mode. Any guesses, Dr. Tasneem, or any other faculty members who are present here, why people are in a denial mode? And that is applicable for all. Let it be Dr. Tasneem, let it be Hitesh, let it be Bharat sir, Himani ma'am, Shiva Subramanian sir, or any other faculty member. Why it
So,
starts with a
what
denial?
if, as per my thought, we
Mhm.
I'll be saying no in the first way because I didn't want or I don't want it to work. Maybe that is one of the
Uh-huh.
reason.
Right.
And second is key because since the process may be new,
Uh-huh.
so bit reluctant in going with the changes and all.
Right. Right. So you are right, ma'am. In the starting, it would be no, because we all are in comfort zone.
Yes,
We all are in comfort zone, and this is a general human nature. We don't want to change our particular way of working. There is a schedule that we are following on every day, right? And if
right.
there are some changes in that schedule, our general human nature is, please don't tell us about this new change. I think Archana ma'am, you also want to share something.
Yes, sir. Actually, when the person is denying denial mode,
Hmm.
so denial mode comes because of the fear, because of lack of awareness,
Right.
and to avoid the consequences. So,
Very right.
person is in denial mode, sir.
Very right. So you are right, ma'am. We'll talk about this also. Very good point that you have shared here. Why people are in denial mode? Because they are not properly educated about that particular change, or they are not about communicated about that change, or what are the benefits out of that particular change. So we'll go into that also, Archana ma'am. We'll keep in mind, and going further in these steps, we'll talk about where it should come in this particular journey of 4 stages of change. So let's take an example, and because through stories we learn, or through examples we learn very easily. So let's take an example. Dr. Archana and Dr. Tasneem, they are very positive leaders, and they are bringing in those changes in systems or processes. And let's not talk about much changes in the process system. 30% changes in the current processes of teaching that is being applied to, let's say, college of any ABC college of engineering in which they are heading those particular departments, right? They too, both Dr. Archana and Dr. Tasneem, they are very positive leaders, and we have a negative leader there called Hitesh Kumar Gulati, right? So I'll share it through those particular examples, right? They are such good leaders that out of a, you can say, a team of 100 people, they are able to take they are able to take people to the second stage, which is called as resistance. Now my question again to my dear faculty members: do you think resistance is a better stage than denial, or it's a worse stage than denial? Right. 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 Denial is our comfort zone. Resistance is a better stage, or it's not a good stage. Yes, can we have any answer? Sunakshi ma'am, Archana ma'am, Bharat sir, is resistance
So
a
I
better?
suppose resistance becomes a bit better stage than denial, because if resistance is there, automatically
Yes.
the people will come up with some or the other solution.
Yes. So partially they are agreeing to what you both are proposing. Partially they are agreeing to what you both are proposing, but they are in a fear zone. Resistance means they are partially agreeing, but still inside what they are thinking is, given a chance, we will not go with this particular change. Yes, Archana ma'am. Please share your viewpoints, ma'am, in between. No need of raising your hand. You can share anytime whenever you want.
Sir, denial is typically associated with the early stage of change,
Mm-hmm.
and resistance means resistance can acknowledge the need for change. This is the difference actually. So
True.
resistance is good as compared to denial, sir.
Yes. But resistance as compared to denial is good, but still we are in a, you can say, fixed mindset when we are in these two stages. So you are right that it is better than denial, but still it's not a very positive situation that we are in. So resistance generally comes where we either blame a person or a situation which didn't work earlier. Like let's suppose before Dr. Tasneem and Dr. Archana, somebody else was there who was trying to bring in those changes in the systems or processes. But that person was not able to bring in those changes. So generally, people in this particular zone will talk about that particular instance, that that particular person was not able to bring in those changes. So how come Dr. Tasneem and Dr. Archana will be able to bring in those changes? And here, that negative leader Hitesh Gulati will play the major role, because if you all understand, influence, and especially negative influence, that plays a very major role when you have to take people towards the negative side. So that person, Hitesh Gulati, will be able to influence at least 70% of the people out of 100 to be in the first two stages, because resistance is a fear zone where people are not sure about what kind of changes will come and whether it would be beneficial or not, and whether it would be beneficial for them as an individual or as an organization also. Now here comes the thing which Dr. Archana was talking about. As a leader, if we have to take people from resistance to exploration, we have to regularly, you can say, educate and communicate people about the changes, those 30% changes that are going to come, and how it is going to increase the productivity of an individual as well as the team also, and overall it will help the organization to grow further. So here comes the role of education, and you can say educating and communicating people about those changes. Now, as we are going in for those 30-40% changes, as I said, 70% of the people will be stuck till the resistance stage, the agreeing stage. Only 30% of the people will cross this particular, you can say, barrier and will go to a future-oriented course of mind where they'll enter the third stage called exploration. Now, as the word exploration itself says, exploration is discovery or experimentation. If 30-40% changes are there, Archana ma'am and Tasneem ma'am, do you think 30-40% changes are minor changes, or it are those changes are major changes? 30 to 40% changes in processes or systems is a minor change or it's a major change?
Minor changes, sir.
Minor changes, ma'am. Archana ma'am says minor changes. Tasneem ma'am. Okay, Archana ma'am, if those are minor changes, if we are giving an attempt of bringing something innovative in the process, what can be the success rate and failure rate in that particular thing? If let's say if we are bringing in those 10-20 changes in the processes or systems, what can be the success rate and what can be the failure rate?
I got disconnected.
Okay. Tasneem ma'am, we were in the third stage exploration, which is
Right, sir?
discovery and experimentation. Archana ma'am and
Yes, sir.
we were discussing, and the rest of our faculty members were participating with us in a silent mode. They were not participating in a, you can say, voice through voice mode. My dear faculty members, please participate in discussions. Let's make it more interactive. I am not able to show my
Sir,
face. Yeah.
Anuradha ma'am is writing 40% is a major change.
Okay. So Archana ma'am, Anuradha ma'am says 30-40% is a major change. And Tasneem ma'am, do you think 30% changes or 40% changes in processes or systems is a minor change or major change?
It should be a minor change, and then eventually it can be a major change.
Okay. As per my viewpoint also, even though it is 20-30% also, it's a major change because we are changing certain things which we are not sure whether we will be able to accept it or not. And that can only be made acceptable, as Archana ma'am shared, educating and communicating people in different intervals of time is the right way of bringing in that particular change. So if we are in this stage of discovery or experimentation, trust me, out of 10 attempts, 70% failure rate would be there and 30% success rate would be there. Am I right, Archana ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Or in simple terms, the success rate would be less and the failure rate would be more. And if the failure rate is more, we all understand most of the people will leave the game here, because if there are such, you can say, high percentage of failure and very less percentage of success, we'll generally go to the second stage, back to the second stage, and this is the time where people will cry confusion. Now I'll talk about that confusion part. When we are stuck in first two stages, denial and resistance, that means we are in a state of confusion because we are either in comfort zone, or second, we are either in the fear zone, which is resistance. And these two stages will always keep us in confusion. The moment we enter the third stage, that means somehow we are believing Dr. Tasneem and Dr. Archana's effort in bringing in those changes. So, exploration is a hanger stage. But as I said, if the success rate is less and failure rate is more, out of those 30, 25% will again fall back to resistance. Only 5% will stuck to this third stage. Those 25% who will go back, they'll cry in confusion because these are those people who still believed in both the leaders, and they were also having this viewpoint of bringing in something new in the systems of processes. So they'll cry in confusion because they left the exploration stage, right? But those 5% of the people, out of those indecisiveness, chaos, also they'll be able to find out those gaps and they'll be able to go to the last stage, commitment. Now comes the interesting part, Dr. Tasneem, which I was talking about, joy of confusion. Confusion can make two things: either it can break us or it can make us. Those 5% of the people who, in spite of those particular, you can say, chaos, indecisiveness, was still stuck into that stage, will be able to reach the last stage with commitment and will be able to bring in those changes with you and Dr. Archana. So, out of that confusion, when that confusion no more becomes a load for them, it becomes more like a challenge or game for them, and they are able to reach their particular goals. And lastly, you understand, when out of 100%, only 2 or 5% of the people they reach the last stage, they'll cry out of joy. So this is how I have made it, like how confusion plays a role in, means, stopping us at few stages, or it can make you also if you start enjoying that particular confusion. Right? Should we move ahead from here now? So if you see the first two stages, which is denial and resistance, so denial and resistance basically makes our mindset more fixed in nature. We have low stability and high chaos in this particular mindset. High emotional stress is there. Control becomes a major issue. High undirected energy is there. We always glorify the past. Conflict increases here and resistance starts to build. Whereas if we shift on the right hand side, or you can say the last two stages, exploration and commitment, will become much more stable and resilient. High adversity quotient would be there. Our control will be overpowered by discovery, and we'll be able to moderate energy supply situations. We'll have future oriented course of mind and actions. We'll be able to resolve conflict, and this is the time when joy of confusion will start. Now let's talk about. I'll skip this particular slide because otherwise we'll not be able to complete the program on time. Emotional competence framework. I'll skip this particular part. Now let's talk about what are the components which makes us more progressive in nature. Any idea, any of the faculty members, when we talk about these components like self-diagnosis, listening, self-control, and humility, these are the components which makes us more progressive in nature. So if I have to self-diagnose myself, or if you have to self-diagnose yourself as a leader, what are the questions that you'll be asking to you? If we have to self-diagnose ourselves whether we are progressive or not, what are the some of the questions, two or three questions, anyone if you can share, what are those questions that we'll be asking ourselves in order to diagnose whether we are progressive in nature or not? And Kamalji, I hope there are no signal issues now.
Right now it is okay, Hitesh, sir.
Okay, okay, thank God. Towards the last part, resilience part, we'll have a self-assessment also. But before that, let's talk about progressive part. So if we have to self-diagnose ourselves, what are some of the questions that we should ask ourselves?
So some of the questions for the progressive we can ask in terms of individual belief,
Hmm.
then societal belief,
Right.
cultural belief. So these are the questions we can ask for.
So you mean to say how, as a leader, we are bringing in value to society or to organization? These are some of
Yeah,
the questions. Right,
yeah,
right, right. And to make it more specific to workplace, I'll add to what Archana ma'am has shared. Very right, ma'am. Holistically, you have shared the right set of things that we have to frame questions in those areas. If we have to talk more about the workplace place, so we have to ask questions like, do others see me as an honest and responsible person for my actions? Do people feel
yeah.
safe in my company? Are means or am I seen as an effective person in terms of handling my particular responsibilities or not? So if the
How
answers of
genuine I
those,
am, how genuine I am,
right,
so
very
that
right.
the public can influence me.
Hmm.
How I am having a technological progressiveness.
Very right. And how receptive I am to listen to their particular thoughts or views also. So if most of the answers are yes for these questions, that somehow gives a diagnosis that I am progressive in nature. Second is listening. So I'll not ask much about this. We all understand that gone are the times when leader used to give the instructions and team used to follow. Now things are changing in our particular, you can say, workplaces also. Leaders have become more collaborative, or let's say more participative in nature, and they invite viewpoints from their particular teammates. So once that viewpoint or listening is there to different perspectives, that also brings more, you can say, innovation and creativity in the processes also. Third is self control. How we can improve our self control as a leader. How we can improve our self control as a leader. It's simple. We have to stretch the space between the stimulus and response and choose our response then. Because an emotionally intelligent leader will always use the space between the stimulus and response with better self control, resulting in making more effective choices. And in terms of the fourth component, humility, leaders with pride, self centeredness, judgmental control, and impulsiveness, they should change their orbits. And these respected leaders should direct their ego away from themselves to the larger goal of leading their enterprise to greatness. In shorter sense, if I talk about the entire thing, they have to shift their orbit from ego to humility, which can drastically alter, alter the outcome to their particular advantage. Second part comes collaborativeness. How we can become more collaborative as a leader. And the components that I'll be sharing here applies to the internal, you can say, applies to when we are talking about collaborativeness within the workplace, or it can be in terms of collaborativeness going outside the workplaces also. So what are some of the components which makes us collaborative in nature? Yes, can we have some answers here? Because we have around 40-45 minutes left, so we have enough time. So what are the components which makes us more collaborative in nature? Sonakshi ma'am, Kuldeep sir, any viewpoint from your side?
Sir,
Sir,
collaboration is very much important
Mhm,
because if you wanted to move further ahead without collaboration, that will not be possible. So one need to come together,
mhm.
and different people need to come together under one roof, and then we can think of moving in a forward way. So
Okay.
collaboration is very much important.
So Dr. Tasneem, please add to this. What will make us more progressive in nature? If I am your, you can say, you are my mentor, and you are telling me, Hitesh, you have to become more collaborative in nature. So what are the things you'll be suggesting me? I think Dr. Archana, you also wanted to add something.
sir, actually, you have to set your clear goal.
Hmm.
So this can work, sir.
Okay, ma'am.
Sir, I think, hello.
Yes, Anuradha, ma'am.
Yeah, sir, I think being a collaborative means you have to be very, making a team. You should work with a team,
Hmm.
and that will be help you to achieve your goal.
Right. So working with a team, Archana ma'am said setting the goals, right? Archana ma'am, this is what you shared.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other additions to what both three of
Uh,
them? Yeah.
yes, sir. As written in the chat box, I think collaborative would be working in a team. So, therefore, patience and again listening is required. This is what I feel.
Okay. I'll add to what four of you have shared here also. Along with this, we need some more things to which will make us more collaborative in nature. So those things would be. Let me share it with you. Those things, those components would be becoming a facilitator. Any idea who is a facilitator? We all understand who is a facilitator.
Yes, sir. A bridge between the learner and the topic is a facilitator.
So, what is the general nature of a facilitator, Sonakshi ma'am?
Just to facilitate things to the already learned group, I think.
Right. In addition to what Sonakshi ma'am you have shared, one approach that facilitator follows is ask versus tell. Suppose I'm a person who is telling this is the right way of doing the things and this is how the task should be completed. And let's say Sonakshi ma'am is a good facilitator. She'll always adopt a different approach. Instead of the way Hitesh has instructed people to do that particular task, she'll ask, Sonakshi ma'am will ask, do you think this is the right way of doing things? So, a facilitator always ask people rather than telling people of doing the things. And in return to this particular, you can say, nature, this brings in new ideas on the table. And this does not lead the team to follow one particular way of completing the task. Might be they can come up with new initiatives or you can say new ideas which can help us in completing the task. Archana ma'am, yes, you wanted to share something.
Sir, I want to say that facilitator play a major role in promoting the collaboration.
True, ma'am.
So guiding the group towards achieving their goal. in
Mm-hmm.
a constructive and inclusive manner.
True, true. So it's very important to ask powerful questions, which will basically allow the individuals or team to create their own solutions. And once they create their own solutions, we all can understand that ownership would be there from the individual or the team side, and that will make us more collaborative in nature. Second is developing the purpose for the future. So I'll not take much time on this. We all work on both the things, upskilling as well as reskilling. And I hope all the faculty members will understand what is the difference between upskilling and reskilling. Or do you want me to share more on that? We have to develop the workforce for the future by working both on upskilling people and reskilling people. Should I go ahead?
Yes, sir, sure.
Okay, thank you, Vibha ma'am. Third is freedom to build professional networks. So, one way is we can build networks within the organization, but when we start building professional networks outside the organization, that also helps us to know about the best practices followed by other industry, you can say, or you can say other competitors in the same field also. So we should give freedom to our particular team to build professional networks outside also. Training is one of the way where we, as you can say, trainees from different organizations or different institutions, we also join, and based on the discussions that we are having in those workshops, we also learn from different perspectives of faculty members from other states also, right? And fourth is actively involving and serving others. So we all understand that a leader should be adopting more of a servant leadership style, where the leader should work on the happiness of the people. Because if the people are happy working in that particular organization, that will ultimately lead to better results and achieving the targets of the organization. Now let's go to the last part, which is the resilience part, and we'll take a bit more time into the resilience part. We all understand what is resilience, or should I explain to you what is resilience? Resilience is basically art of bouncing back in shape. And what are the every person is having a different, you can say, recipe for resilience. If I talk about my particular recipe, it's 500 gram of mindfulness, 250 gram of relaxation, and a pinch of enjoyment, which is not right. It is not a pinch of enjoyment. I would prefer a bunch of enjoyment rather than a pinch of enjoyment. So in this particular way, every person is having a different recipe for building their particular resilience. If you would have more time, I would have asked you to take 5 minutes and introduce yourself to all and post up your key ingredients for resilience. But since we have to finish it up on time at 11:30, so I'll skip this second part here. And before we go into the components which makes us more resilient in nature, which makes us more resilient in nature, before that, I'll give a link where you have to do a self assessment of your mental resilience.
So can you please explain one slide again, if you can move back to the
Uh,
flow chart?
sure, sure, Rohit sir. Which one do you want me? Oh, okay, that was basically stages of change, sir.
Yes, sir. That one.
So I'll quickly share it with you because we have already done this, and till the time others are completing it. Rohit sir, what we were
Yes,
talking
sir.
on this slide is, when we talk about change, generally it starts with denial. We all understand it starts with, regardless of whether this change would be positive or negative, we as a individual, we are in denial mode. Suppose Rohit ji is planning to bring in any particular changes, or he is planning to come up with new process or systems, and he shares with me or other team members. Generally we are in denial mode first. On the face we are committing to Rohit ji that we are with you with these particular changes, but generally we are in a denial mode because we are in comfort zone and we don't want to try out something new. But let's take an example that you are such a positive leader that you are, people who have worked with you, they know about your particular belief system and conviction. When it comes to bringing in changes in the system. So you'll be able to take people to the second stage, which is called as resistance. But we all understand resistance again is a negative stage, but better than denial. Resistance means partially we are ready to bring in those changes with Rohit, but not fully ready. In such kind of instance, I shared one of the examples. There would be leaders. I shared one example. Let's suppose Hitesh is a negative leader. He'll influence people that whatever changes Rohitji is planning to bring, nothing is going to change the way things are being running here, and it is not going to increase the productivity, right? So here influence plays a major role, and 70% of the people they get stuck in first two stages, in denial and resistance. And generally, when we get stuck into these two stages, that means we are having a fixed mindset and we don't want to try out something new. And these two stages will always keep us in a state of confusion. But as I said, since people have worked with you and they know about your particular way of bringing changes, you'll be able to take 30%, the remaining 30% of the people to the third stage, which is exploration. And exploration, the word itself says. Okay, so Rohit sir, what I was talking, 70% of the people will get stuck in first two stages. Denial is comfort and resistance is fear zone. So either due to comfort or due to fear, they'll get stuck in first two stages. And if they get stuck in first two stages, that means they are having a fixed mindset and they don't want to try out something new. But as I said, out of 100, if 30% of the people will still go with you in the third stage, which is exploration. And exploration word itself says discovery or experimentation. So when we are trying out something new, as we discussed earlier also, let's say 30-40% changes in any particular process or systems is again a very major change. The failure rate would be higher than the success rate. So out of those 30%, again 25% will fall back to resistance. And if they'll fall back to resistance, they'll cry in confusion because these 30% people were those people who were with you in bringing in that particular change, but you can say they were not having that persistence and they went back to the second stage. So they'll cry in confusion because inside their, you can say their mind will, subconscious mind will prick them that they were not able to do this particular task or complete this particular task. But those 5% of the people, in spite of those chaos, indecisiveness, confusion, were still there with you in that particular game, then that particular change will not become a load for them and that will become a challenge or you can say game for them. And out of that particular joy of confusion, they'll be able to reach the last stage and they'll be able to bring in those 30-40% changes in the systems due to commitment. And in commitment, when we have that commitment, we become much more focused, balanced, and we work with teamwork and cooperation. And lastly, the result is cry of joy. Rohiji, these are certain words that I added just as spices. But if we talk about the changes, whenever we talk about changes, we generally go through these four stages: denial, resistance, exploration, and commitment. And coming back to this progressive part, if we want to be more progressive in nature, we have to continuously oscillate like a pendulum in between exploration and commitment, irrespective of any era. Exploration is our learning zone, and commitment is our growth zone, right? So, should I move ahead, Rohiji?
Yes, sir. And it was
So,
explained
because
really beautifully. Thank you so much, sir.
thank you so much, sir. I'll move ahead and we'll come to this assessment part. I'm sure all the faculty members they have completed their assessment now. Kamalji, let me know from the chat box also because again I am not putting on the chat box.
Okay, okay, sir. So Sonakshi ma'am is also saying yes.
Okay, I think my chat box is running fine because I am also able to see the messages. Right. So the simple thing that you have to do is whatever numbers you have written against those 20 statements, you have to do a total of that. So the score part, one of the things I'll be sharing it with you right now. The second part I'll be sharing once we share what are the components that makes us resilient in nature. So first, let's do the total of that particular score. Okay. Even if you don't write it in the chat box, That is also fine. Thank you, Khwaja Izhar Ahmed sir. But even if you don't write it in the chat box, that is also fine because I want the results should be confidential to you only. If you want to share it here, you are most welcome. Naveen sir has shared 79. Okay. Now let me give you the legends, or you can say the scoring part. Gurdita Bhardwaji says 71. Totaling done, Sonakshi ma'am, very good. So I'll assume most of the faculty members have done the totaling part. Now let me share the result part with you. If you have scored more than 80% in your scores, that trademarks you that you are highly resilient in nature. And let me share it with you. This is a capsule test. 20 statements cannot decide totally about your resilience part, but it can give you a flavor, right? So if you have scored more than 80%, that means you are highly resilient leader. If you scored in between 60 to 80%, that means you have advocate resilience, right? And if you have scored less than 60%, that means as a leader, we have to work on our particular resilience part, right? Now the scores are with you, you can relate it to that. Now what makes us resilient in nature? Again, there are three components that makes us resilient in nature, and we'll also split these 20 statements into those three different components. So please keep this particular document open at your end. Before we split those 20 statements into three different components, let's talk about what are those three different components which makes us resilient in nature. First is your ambiguity threshold. Any idea what is ambiguity threshold? Any idea what is ambiguity threshold? Okay. Since we are left with 10 minutes, I'll go ahead. When we encounter any uncertain situation, generally we jump to conclusions. And the conclusion is like what's going to happen to me if I'm not able to do this particular thing. So ambiguity means when we are facing any uncertain situations, and generally in such kind of situations, we jump to conclusions like what's going to happen to me if I'm not able to do this particular thing, right? Which is not a right approach. This is a problem oriented approach. Instead of this, our thinking should be come what might be the situation. If I am not able to do it, I have my dear friend Rohit ji with me, I have my dear friend uh, Naveen ji with me, or I have my dear friend Sunakshi ma'am with me, or Vibha ma'am with me. They can give me solutions for that. So I should have plan B in my particular mind. If I am having this solution oriented thinking, my ambiguity threshold will increase. But it's very easy to talk about this. For this, we have to work on the other two components. First, we should have a positive internal monologue. If we are having a positive internal monologue, we'll be able to work on the you can say the third component, which is energy supply. If we are having a positive monologue, internal monologue, we'll be able to variate our energy supply in different situations, which will ultimately help us in increasing the ambiguity threshold. Now let's get back to our particular assessments. If you see statement number 1 to statement number 7, that talks about your ambiguity threshold. So please do a total of statement number 1 to statement number 7, and your total will come out of 35 for first 7 statements. Once you're done with that, let me know. I'll talk about the other two parts also then. I'm repeating it once again. The first 7 statements, thank you Vibha ma'am for confirming. First 7 statements total, and the total will come out of 35. Why out of 35? Because if you would have given 5 for each of the statements, for 7 statements, 7 into 5 is 35. So your total will come out of 35, and if your total is above 28 or above, that means your ambiguity threshold is high, which is again a very good sign. Now, the second part, and Vibha ma'am or any other faculty member, if I am going too fast, please ask me to get slow so that I'll not go too fast. Should I go ahead with the second part? Okay, thank you,
Yes,
Naveen sir.
sir. Yes, sir. Sure.
Right. Thank you, ma'am. So 27, Naveen sir. Thank you, Sonakshi ma'am, also for confirming. Now you have to total the second part, which is from statement number 8 to statement number 13, which makes it only 6 statements. That means your total should come out of 30. And once you're done with this total also, please let me know. Out of 30, if you have scored 24 and above, Naveen sir has scored 24. That means you are having a positive internal monologue. Now, the last set of statements is from statement number 14 to statement number 20, which is again 7 statements. So, for the last set also, the total will come out of 35. Okay, Benila ma'am, thank you so much. 26 you have scored, and I'm think 26 you have scored in the last, right? Naveen sir says 14, 20, 28. 14 to, okay, 14 to 20, 28. And Vanilla ma'am says 8 to 13. Very good, Vanilla ma'am. Your monologue is very positive, internal monologue. And Naveen sir, your energy supply is too high, 28. Father sir, 23. Very good, very near sir to 80%. So you can understand first 7 statements is related to your ambiguity threshold. Next 6 statements is related to your internal monologue, and last 7 statements is related to your energy supply. But do you think whatever components I have spoken here about, which builds your resilience, is it very easy to build a resilience only on these particular things, or do we need any other thing apart from this? That will make us closer to the conclusion of this session. Last 2 slides. Do you think ambiguity threshold, internal monologue, energy supply, if we work on these 3 things, things can happen? What is the other thing that lays the foundation for, you can say, for building the ambiguity threshold? The Neela ma'am, very good score, 31. When we talk about these 3 components, ambiguity threshold, internal monologue, and energy supply, our performance will only go higher when we work on A, B, C. Now let's again take an example of where we started this entire session from. Dr. Archana, and we had another faculty member. Ma'am, I forgot your name. Uh, Dr. Khan was also there. I
Yes,
forgot.
sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
That's
Dr.
me.
Tasneem Khan. Yeah, yes, ma'am. So let's again take an example of both Dr. Tasneem and Dr. Archana and Rohiji. Rohiji also joined us. So let's take all 3 different examples. These 3 are very positive leaders, and Hitesh is a negative leader. So if any uncertain situation comes up, their activating trigger, 3 of them, their activating trigger is very positive. Whereas in case of Hitesh, he jumps to conclusion, oh my god, what's going to happen to me next? So my activating trigger is just like a setback, shock, right? So when my activating trigger is just like a setback or shock, my way of perceiving things, my attitude, beliefs, thoughts, even the meanings, everything will go negative. Whereas in their case, in case of Dr. Tasneem, Dr. Archana, and Rohitji, this activating trigger was positive, due to which their belief, the perception, attitude, belief, thoughts, everything went in a positive way. And the consequences, the result was they 3 were having that emotional balance, and their behavior was good with their particular teams. Whereas in case of Hitesh, there was a, you can say, he lost the balance, and intelligence was also lost, even while he was interacting with people also. That behavior was not good, which ultimately, you can say, degraded the performance. Whereas in case of all three leaders, their performance went up due to their particular positive activating trigger. So I'll conclude with one last slide. When we talk about building PCR mindset for leadership development, how we can add values to organization culture as a leader is, first we have to keep working on our PCR mindset for continuous improvement. Second, for every critical situation, we should keep our ABC positive, just like Dr. Tasneem, Dr. Archana, and Rohitji. And third, irrespective of any era, we should never stop experimentation or discovery. And lastly, again, let it be any particular era, we should be adopting a philosophy of out with the old and in with the new, because that is somehow will keep the child inside alive. So we'll have a learner syndrome, we'll learn new things, and we'll have insatiable curiosity to try out something new. So this is how we can add values to organization culture, by having that PCR mindset. Thank you so much, my dear faculty members. And Kamalji, this is all from my side. And we have 2 more minutes. If anybody is having any questions, most welcome.